Hello and welcome back to Sigma TV. With us today we have Daniel Torres Gonçalves from Portuguese legal firm KLEX. Hello Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hi Jeremy, thank you for having me.
Well, and it's good to have you too. And before we get into the meat of the topic, tell us a bit what you do at KLEX and how you got into the medical sector and specifically with regards to cybersecurity.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I'm sorry I don't manage to be there with you in Malta, but it's really good to speak with you. Well, in fact, I'm a dropout from informatics engineering. I studied that for a bit and just realized that was not my thing, and so I just changed to law, and I studied both in Portugal and in Edinburgh. But I always focused on technology, on IT, on science in general, and also in medical issues. So started to work both in IT concerning commercial electronic commerce, terms and conditions, privacy, and also medical law like liability, regulation, etc. So at KLEX, we focus a lot on that issues. So in intellectual property, for instance, in personal information, and so that's the core of our business, especially focused on health. So if you connect both the IT and the health, you have mostly the cybersecurity of personal data and health personal data specifically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and obviously when it comes to data, the elephant in the room, so to speak, is always data confidentiality and these kind of things. Not only when it comes to patient-doctor confidentiality, but also the patient's own data and information. What can you tell us about the current legalese when it comes to these things?
In the last decades, there was a really big change, not only concerning technology per se, but also in the relationship between a patient and his doctor. So traditionally, we would have a relation one-to-one. So myself as a patient and the doctor, and today that doesn't happen. You have the relationship between the patient and a set of doctors, a set of institutions, and you don't have your medical records on paper. You have it digitally, and that's a real good thing, because it opens up lots of doors, but that brings also risks. And so addressing these risks, we have to see how we can make sure that you yourself have your privacy protected. That is something like, say, okay, you as a patient, you will have control about where is your data, who accesses your data. And so the law tries to address this, and so trying to make the cybersecurity technology work the best for protecting the data. And the biggest example we have is GDPR, that tries to address personal data in general, and also applicable to health data. But of course, I would say that concerning GDPR, there are two main issues. First, there is still a long way ahead. So a lot of work to do, both by institutions that have and companies that have to implement that. And in Portugal, for instance, we are lagging behind because there's still lots to do, and also by member states who have to make sure that people are complying and have to make the fees applicable. And so everything must be done so the system as a whole works, and that's not happening at this moment. This is the first issue. The second issue is that GDPR and laws in this sense or worldwide, although we are in the forefront in this area, the EU, I would say, but these laws do not address the next big challenge as a whole, and specifically for privacy, that is big data. So the next maybe the next conference, we have to look at this and to know what both cybersecurity and the law by itself can do to address this, because once we know what is in this great pool of data, we will know what we can do, or probably we will know what we can't do to protect our data that is there.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, since our data should be protected, almost inversely, there has to be a certain right to access as well. What can you tell us about this inverse view and issue?
Yeah, that's a really big question, because personal data, and specifically health data, is really valuable. So it's really important, not only for me as a patient, not only to the doctor that wants to treat me, but for the community. And so this is the real challenge for cybersecurity, is that we cannot say that, okay, we have this data and it can be closed somewhere. That's not the best, not for me and not for the community as a whole. So if we want to respect the informational privacy, I must, as owner of the data, I must access the data. If I want to be treated, my doctor must be able to access the data as well. But also, as it's a valuable asset, researchers, for instance, must be able to access the data. And so all this makes it a really big challenge to know that we must access. So the important point is that we must define really strict rules, and not only legal rules, but also ethical rules. So if one is to access data, he must have a good reason to do it. And if he does that, he should access only the data that he needs, and he should be able to justify the fact that he is doing it or that he did it. And so I would say that these rules should be defined, should be clarified. You should have systems that are privacy by design. This is something you hear a lot, and it makes special sense when you are talking about building informational systems within hospitals or within national health systems. So they should respect privacy by design, since the moment that you are coding the basis of the system. So it's you are able not only to limit access, but also to make the access transparent. So you should be able to know who access, when, and why.
Mm-hmm. And this really ties into something which we're hearing a lot about nowadays, particularly with everything that's happening in the world with COVID-19. And you had mentioned to me this term, traceability, and I believe that it ties into a lot what you're saying, what you're talking about right now. Can you expand a little on this term, traceability?
Yeah, of course. Once you have this really valuable asset, you cannot talk strictly about something that you hear when talking about GDPR, that is consent. So, of course, consent is vital in some issues to justify access or treatment of personal data. That is true, but it's not the only issue that justifies this treatment of this data processing. That's correct. But when you are talking about your health, many times you won't be able to speak about consent, or because you are not able to consent, or you cannot find the person that should consent within the time frame that you have. So if you are talking about someone that should be treated, you are not focusing on this. And so there will be times when talking about health data, you will have to access that data. So you won't justify this access. You cannot be worried about following the procedure that is defined for some other situations. You just have to access, namely in maybe in COVID-19 may justify in some sense this, but your doctor that is treating you, that can be justified by that. So many times you just have to access your data. So here the systems, the cybersecurity systems, what have to make sure is that once you access the data, you will be able to trace the data and to afterwards make the verification that everything was respected, so that everything was correct when dealing with that data. So when talking about personal data, specifically in health, sometimes you are not talking in the access on the sense that you are assessing the possibility of doing it while accessing. Okay, sometimes you are doing afterwards. So once the access is doing, the most important thing is that you are able to trace these accesses. And so this is vital to understand that as a valuable asset, sometimes you are not able to choose when or how to do it. So you have to control the best you can, and this is done technologically, so you are able to respect the informational privacy of the people that own the data.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and obviously with data being so important, we always try to keep up to date with the most important legalese and technology. Unfortunately, Daniel, this is all we have time for today, although fortunately, we're going to be hearing more from you at our MedTech digital event next month in October. So we hope to see you there. Daniel, to the viewers, thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you also at the event, and see you next time.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, and see you next time.